Hi, my name is Mark Swain, and together with my wife Tammy, we have been missionaries in Poland since the end of 1997. We lived in Poland for 12 years. After 12 years, we came back to the United States, mainly to take care of a child with autism. Since then, I've been taking trips back and forth into Poland 3 or 4 times a year, mainly to teach the Word of God, to preach the gospel, and to counsel believers. We also have a ministry in Portugal and here in the United States as well. But our hearts still remain in Poland for many reasons. We have lots of friends there, and we seek to see the Lord's work progress in the land of Poland. Recently, I took a trip to Poland in the beginning of April. One thing that I was able to do was to see the effects of the Ukrainian refugee crisis on the Polish assemblies, and also observe what the Poles are doing in order to help the refugees. There are 3 main things that they've been involved in. One is a printing ministry. Polish believers have been able to print thousands and thousands of Gospels of John's in the Ukrainian language, as well as Emmaus Bible correspondent courses, and also special gospel tracts that have been designed specifically for this particular crisis. One tract is Why God Allows War, and the other one is Peace Possible? Other material is being printed, and these booklets and tracts are going to the Ukraine, as well as to Ukrainians all over Poland and all over Eastern Europe, wherever the refugees are going. And these booklets are requested. They're shipped free of charge to help with the spiritual ministry that is abounding right now as a result of this refugee crisis. So the Poles have been heavily involved in that. One aspect of that printing ministry also involves making backpacks for children, and these backpacks are packed with candy and little trinkets, things that would put a smile on children's faces. But they also contain gospel literature, and they're taken deep inside the Ukraine to be given to children who are stuck in the country and who are traumatized basically because of the war. Another way that the Poles are helping is in the humanitarian crisis. So the Polish believers have organized a place where items can be collected, whether it's bedding, whether it's supplies, toiletries, whether it's food, blankets, anything that is needed. Weekly, they've been going into the Ukraine and dropping off these supplies at churches, and then they're being distributed to people in need. And of course, along with those supplies are the gospel booklets, the gospel literature. A third way the Poles are helping is they are also housing Ukrainian refugees whenever possible. So some assemblies have the ability to actually have families staying with them in their assembly buildings. In some cases, the buildings are being renovated in order to accommodate these refugees. Some are staying for a short period of time, but then there are others who are staying for the long term. They have no plans necessarily to leave the area, and so the believers are housing them and supplying for their needs. Along with the humanitarian aid, of course, is the spiritual needs of the people. And that's where these Gospels of John's and these gospel tracts and special meetings are being organized, the booklets being given out in order to reach the people with the gospel. There is a great trauma that especially the children are facing. So there are some grief counseling sessions that are being run from some of the assemblies. There are Bible studies that are being organized in the Ukrainian language. There are picnics and all kinds of ways that the assemblies are trying to get Ukrainians together in order to encourage them. So in one case, I know in the southern area of Poland, the believers are working hard at going to the places where these refugees are being housed and trying to present the gospel to them. They would actually like to rent some houses nearby the assembly building to make this ministry more possible. You see, the assemblies in Poland understand that this crisis is not a short-term crisis. So the Poles are thinking long-term how to be helpful in order to minister Christ to them. So some of the ways that you can pray for the believers in Poland is, first of all, in the distribution of the supplies, the resources, that they would get into the right hands and they would meet the needs of the people. And finally, think about the children, especially the children who are traumatized by this war. There's great need for reaching those children who have been greatly affected by what is going on. Loss of parents, loss of their lifestyle and their culture, and displaced is a very hard thing for anyone, especially for children who have left behind siblings who are too old to have been able to escape and are fighting in the war, and also husbands and fathers who are caught in this tragedy as well.